Hey guys, it's Moonlander, and today I'm here with a video on my 5 most disturbing movies. And I want to warn you before we get started with this list, don't watch these movies unless you have a certain level of tolerance for content in your movies, because these aren't movies that I chose lightly. They're pretty disturbing. It's not always about the gore or violence on these movies I picked. A few of them have some extremely violent things in them, but it more has to do with the characters and the story and the situations they're in. And these movies are definitely not for a lot of people, but I would say that all of them are good to excellent movies, but you just don't want to watch these without, getting an idea of what you're getting into first. So I just wanted to warn you guys that these are, disturbing as far as subject matter or anything like that goes for these movies. Okay, so we're going to start off well, the first one on this list is going to be The Piano Teacher. And The Piano Teacher is about a middle-aged piano teacher who still lives with her mom, and her mom is quite overbearing. And she is, I guess the best way to put it is she's a troubled individual. So I guess the most disturbing things about this movie, besides the woman herself, is the relationship with her mother and the relationship she develops with a young man that becomes infatuated with her. And the mother is afraid of the piano teacher's students surpassing her and getting to a point in their career playing the piano that she just wasn't able to reach. So she basically continues to instill this into her daughter, and they sleep side by side, and there's even a scene where the piano teacher, played by Isabella Hubert, is quite an actress. But anyway, she forces herself on the mom at one point in this movie. It's pretty weird and off-putting. But there's a lot of disturbing parts in this movie. I'm just going to tell you about a few of them because I don't want to give the whole movie away, because they definitely add to the character and the movie. And it's an amazing movie. So this piano teacher, she's somewhat of a pervert, and there's a couple times in the movie where they show her go to a porn store, and she doesn't really seem to have any kind of relationship. So I don't know if she's lonely or she's just a pervert, but there's one point where she goes and she gets the coins to use the booths that, people go in basically to masturbate. And by people, I mean men. And anyway, so she goes to the booths and they're all occupied. So she's just standing there waiting while the other guys in the store are just kind of looking at her like, what the hell are you doing? And anyway, so she finally goes in there. And now, I have the unrated version, and it shows actual hardcore pornography. It's not extended, but it shows it. I mean, you see everything. And anyway, while she's sitting there watching it, she's by out the used tissues that are in there and sniffing them as she's watching. And then there's a part where she goes by a drive-in movie theater, and she walks by a car of a people in the couple in the car, they're having relations, and she decides to sit to take a pee right next to the car while they're doing this, and the guy catches her and chases her off. It was really weird. Yeah, but anyway, I don't want to tell you much more as far as those things go, because if you do decide to watch it, you should just be kind of surprised by what this woman does in this movie. I just want to emphasize like how well done this movie is and how good a job that Isabelle Huppert does in this movie. The mom is done really well. I mean, the acting's just amazing. And there was some really interesting things in the IMDb trivia. There's a scene at the end of the movie. Well, I don't want to tell you what happens, but it involves the main actress basically injuring herself, and apparently they had to do it with like 54 takes. And wow, and I thought that was interesting. And it is a powerful scene. I mean, I don't know. And probably the coolest thing about this movie is when it was shown at Cannes, they gave it 3 awards, like Best Picture, Actor, and Actress. And after they did that, they made a rule that they couldn't give all 3 to the same movie ever again. But this movie did get that. So, I mean, it's well done. A lot of people like it, but the subject matter is disturbing. Okay, you guys, we'll move on to the next one. I could talk about that movie probably for a couple hours. Okay, so the next movie I wanted to put on this list is called Edmund. And it stars William H. Macy, and it has quite a few other really familiar faces, like the actresses in it. Let's see, it has Denise Richards, Mina Suvari from American Beauty, and it has Julia Stiles in it. But anyway, this movie is about he's a well-to-do businessman in New York City, and they don't really show you exactly what started his day off, but he ends up having a off day or something bothered him about his job, and he goes home and basically tells his wife that he doesn't love her anymore, and then he sets off on the town. And he gets into like some really weird situations, and you basically go on an uncomfortable ride with this character.
Whatever I've done, I'll make right. You know what madness is? It's self-indulgence. Put that down! You know how rare this is? These things happen. You are the devil! And then they're done. Now look what you've done.
As he has a mental breakdown that leads him into violent outbursts, committing murder, and, ranting, and eventually you see what happens to him. This is not a happy movie. There's a lot of uncomfortable scenes in it, and I remember the first time I saw this movie, my wife quit watching it. It was too much for her. But, I watched it again so I could refresh my memory about it, and it is still disturbing as I remembered it, and yeah, I definitely wanted to put it on this. And if you're a William H. Macy fan, or you feel strongly the other way about him, this is definitely going to affect how you feel about him further, whether it's going to make you dislike him more, or if you're indifferent about him, you're going to feel a certain way about him either way. You're either going to like him more and respect him more as an actor. This movie is something I do suggest to people, but the subject matter is, once again, it's disturbing. Okay, and the next movie on this list is going to be one called Happiness. And it's directed by Todd Solondz. And if you aren't familiar with him, he's a director who does some pretty strange movies. But anyway, I wanted to put this movie on this list because It's about it's kind of like stories of different people that intertwine, and they're all about human connection. And all of these stories are very odd and disturbing. And there is some really disturbing subject matter in this movie. It's really entertaining. It's very well done. The acting's really good, but the subject and matter in this movie is what gets it on this list. It can be very off-putting to some people. I did enjoy this movie, but I wouldn't suggest it lightly to most people.
Putting New Jersey down, but that's just because they don't get it. I'm living in a state of irony.
How's it going? She only knew how I felt. She doesn't even know I exist. I bore people. Who is that boring person, they think? I've never before met anyone so boring. I have nothing.
Sometimes I wonder if any of your patients can talk to you.
I should tape some for you.
Oh, Bill, would you? Would you really? So I could listen too?
And it does star Philip Seymour Hoffman. And, you know, I'm a pretty big fan of his. He was one hell of an actor. And he definitely is in this movie. And I haven't watched it in some time, but if I remember right, his character like masturbates on pictures, and then like he uses the semen to stick it on his bedroom wall and collect pictures. And then there is also, I know that's gross, I don't know why that's funny, but he's just an entertaining actor. And then there's a really funny part where he like is kind of stalking his neighbor, and like he calls her up like randomly, and he's like, "I'm gonna fuck you," and that like it ends up like turning this woman on. And when she finds out like how he really is, well, you'll see if you watch it. It's an entertaining one, disturbing.
Laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
But I'm not laughing.
Gonna find it. Gonna find
I wanted to put a movie based on a Jack Ketchum book. And if you're familiar with him, he basically writes horror that doesn't involve supernatural or monsters or science fiction at all. It's all humans, and they are horror. And I haven't read all his books, but I've read a number of them, and I've seen quite a few of the movies, and they're all disturbing. And there was one I had seen years ago that I wanted to put on this list, but I watched it last night after I got it in the mail, and it was between it and A Girl Next Door, and I've got to go with A Girl Next Door. That one is really disturbing. It's really similar to An American Crime with Ellen Page, if you've ever seen that one. American Crime is based on a true story. The Girl Next Door, I think, is because Jack Ketchum does write books about true stories. So this is about two young women who get left in the care of a woman that if I remember right, their family wasn't real familiar with them. And this woman is completely evil. She ends up basically torturing the older one and in a way the younger one, but what they do to the older girl, she has her kids get involved, and I think neighbor kids, and I mean, they brutally torture her. It's awful, it's off-putting, and it's disturbing. And I guess as I was looking through here at some of the information on the movie, it is a true story, and that makes it even more disturbing. Don't watch this movie if those kinds of things get to you, or you know, they reminisce of anything in your personal life, because yeah, I mean, you don't need to see stuff like that. But I wanted to put one of his movies on my list, and I'm gonna put that one because that one was the most like disturbing one, because just to think of what these children had to go through. I mean, there's no other way to put it than disturbing, and it'll stick with you. Alright, and then the last movie on this list, and I think is the most disturbing movie I have ever seen, is going to be Lars von Trier's Antichrist. Now, this is a movie where I have never seen something so beautiful and so awful in the same movie. I mean, I've just never seen anything like it. It is truly an amazing movie that is very disturbing.
What frightens you?
It's not real clear what his intention. To me, it isn't clear why he made this movie and what it means. It definitely invokes feeling and thought, and you'll never forget it. It is disturbing, but you will never forget this movie if you have the guts to watch it. There's a couple extremely brutal things in this movie. And otherwise, there's a real eerie and almost scary and frightening tone throughout the whole movie. And it's about a couple, William Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg, an amazing actress, and William Dafoe's amazing too. But they've lost their child who fell out their bedroom window while they were making love. And they retreat to a cabin in the woods as kind of a therapy. And they're secluded out there. And the woman is like writing a book on torments women had to go through like during the 1700s or something like that, and that definitely plays a role into what happens in the movie, but why and what unfolds isn't cut and dry. And when it's over, you're left with some deep and haunting thoughts. I mean, it's really provocative, and the way it's filmed, made, and acted is top notch. It is one of the best artistic movies I've ever seen. I mean, there's nothing like it, but it is by far one of the most disturbing movies ever, in my opinion.
Do this. The ground is burning.
The ground is not burning.
Nature is Satan's church.
Do you know what you're saying?
You shouldn't underestimate evil.
Tell me what you think is supposed to happen in the woods.
Alright, you guys, thanks for watching. This was a lot of fun to make, but I had to watch some of these again because it had been so long. And these movies aren't easy to find. Like, some of these you can't rent on Amazon. They're not on Netflix. You might have to buy them if you really want to watch them. Or if you download or whatever. I mean, you probably can find it that way. But, just be forewarned, none of these are anything you want to put on in front of the kids. You might not want to watch them with the wife either. Because I know a few of these ones on here, my wife did not like them. I told her about putting the piano teacher on this, and she just made faces. So anyway, I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching, and please comment because I love talking about these movies. Alright, guys.